What a great trip. Nashville's such a great city. And the reason we were there is we were with all of our preferred realtors. We actually made a mission statement to let our listeners know. In the mission statement, I don't want to read you the whole thing, but my goodness, it's so simple. We're here to help you leave California as smoothly, as effectively as we can. And I'm super pumped up. I mean, the event was great to be with all of our realtors from around the country to collaborate, to continue to figure out how to help you, our members, to get out of California. So with that said, we'll touch a little bit about our trip. And Monty's got some information as always. And let me say good morning to my team. Good morning, Terry.
It's great to see you, David. On the plane home yesterday, I sat next to a woman from Franklin, Tennessee, who works at the DMV in Franklin. And she said, "You're sending a lot of people to the Nashville area from California." I said, "Well, it's not me. I'd love to take credit for that. But a lot of Californians love the Nashville area, and there's a lot of Californians that are moving there." And I told her, I said, "Well, my only fear is that they vote the way they do." She says, "I'm telling you, some of these people are so conservative. They're way more conservative than I am." And it was nice to find a DMV woman who was conservative. I was a little surprised, but that's the way it is in Tennessee, but a great time.
And by the way, Monty, one of the topics that came up, and maybe we can touch on this today, was the topic of people leaving California, figuring out that it's too cold or too hot, and going back to California. And my goodness, I mean, this is why you have to watch our show. You have to use our realtors. You have to get educated from us because we don't want anybody to leave and then go back. So good morning, Monty. That was a big topic. And boy, we don't want to ever see that.
Yeah, morning. That is an interesting statistic. If people are going back, it does make sense that they would go back for the nice weather in Southern California. But there are other parts of the country with nice weather. We're having pretty good weather in Texas right now. It's 55 degrees this morning, and that's the coldest it'll be all week. It'll get back up into the 70s. And so, yeah, that's great. We're here to help.
Well, let's dive in and let's take the good, the bad, and the ugly. I know everybody, we talked about it for 2 weeks in a row. The Fed finally cut the rates. And now when and by the way, the three of us are all Christians, and we know we have a higher power. So we're very transparent. We're very honest. So we don't ever misguide anybody or give out false information like somebody we know. But anyway, what does that mean and what's going on? Let's tell it to them and give them the good and the bad news.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I feel like talking about the Fed cutting the Fed funds rate is kind of old news. And in German, they would say, "Das ist Schnee von gestern." That means that's snow from yesterday. And it's becoming more and more that way, that it's irrelevant. Rates have gone up for 4 straight weeks. It's over a month ago. They've just continued to go up and up and up. And even this morning, they're up again. So what are we going to do? We still believe that they're going to go down closer to the election. We're waiting on that. We've seen some good signs. One of those being the home builder confidence that we got last week. That rose for the second straight month. The easing inflation and the anticipation of the falling mortgage rates, it really led to that improvement. We believe in the sentiment from the home builders. This came from the National Association of Home Builders, the NAHB. They reported that the housing market index increased 2 points to 43 in October. So while the home builder confidence remains below 50% in contradiction territory, it's risen 2 straight months after declining throughout the spring and summer. So October also brought improvement in all 3 index components: the buyer traffic, the current and future sales expectations. So the builders are clearly feeling better about the housing market over the next 6 months. Future sales expectations have jumped now 4 points, and they're further into expansion territory above that 50% mark. So the chair of the NAHB, Carl Harris, he said builders are feeling more optimistic about the 2025 market conditions. It's a really good thing, David. When builders feel confident, that's where homes come from, obviously. So we like to hear that.
Yeah. And so I'm going to switch back to the trip again. And Terry, we were in Nashville for 4 days. And I know that our members really just want to get information about whether they should leave or not leave. And so maybe, Terry, if you could share a couple thoughts on that. And how was the trip in Nashville?
Well, Nashville's unbelievable. For anybody who hasn't been there, I would highly recommend you go just as a tourist. Might want to avoid a Titans game weekend, because there's tens of thousands of people roaming Broadway as you walk around. But Nashville has so much to offer, and Nashville is so much more than just Broadway. Nashville has amazing waterways. It has the river. It's beautiful. I would highly recommend anyway. And by the way, hot chicken, I believe, was invented in Nashville. And we had a great barbecue. We had a great barbecue there in Nashville also. But for quality of life, I would highly recommend that you reach out to us. We can introduce you to some great people in the Nashville area who can give you more information about it.
You know, Terry, you got to, I know that you know all of our realtors just from texting and emails and stuff, but you actually got to see some of the realtors that we have in our network face to face for the first time. And maybe you could share a little bit about that with our members about what kind of realtors we look for and who do we have in our organization that are going to be the key to you having a successful move out of California.
These people are, as David has said many times, their goal is not to have you buy a house. Their goal is to help you live a better life. If you come to Nashville and you drive around and look at all the different communities, you've got everything from Williamson County, where Franklin's located. You've got a whole circumference. By the way, you can only be about 20, 30 minutes outside of Nashville and still buy a house for around $300,000, sometimes even less. A nice house on some land. Don't think that just because you're in the Nashville area. Williamson County, by the way, median home price is $800,000, but you're competing against Nashville stars, country music stars. You're competing against Hollywood actors who have relocated out of California. You're competing against a very high-end buyer. In several other counties, though, around Nashville, you're dealing with very reasonably priced homes still. But I will tell you that a lot of people have discovered Nashville, and there's a lot of people that live there, but you don't have to live in those crowded areas. The other thing is, again, back to our realtors, though, is they are there to help you. They're there to give you information. Not a single realtor that we work with wants you to buy a house and then come back 6 months later so they can help you sell that house. They want to make sure that your kids are comfortable if you've got children, if you're retired, that you're living in a great community. Their goal is to help you, again, live a better life. And it's out there. If you're not happy in California, it's out there. A higher quality of living, lower cost of living is all out there for you.
And by the way, we have this Leaving California handbook that we will send to you just for watching our show, and it gives you some great tips on leaving. One of the things that's really vital is that you have the right realtor, like Terry just said, and you got to have the right lender. Now, if you have Monty and Monty's team, I mean, you got two big ones right out of the way. And so I want to talk a little bit about our Nashville trip. And by the way, as of filming this, we're only 2 weeks away from the election. And we understand there's a lot of people waiting to see what the results are, which I don't know if it's really going to matter. But anyway, that's a whole nother podcast. So I want to get back to Monty. And I think what I heard you saying, Monty, was that you're very optimistic for 2025. And maybe you could talk about 2025 and talk about this last quarter of 2024.
Yeah, for sure. Although we got good information from the home builders, the other side of that's the new construction and seeing what's actually happening with supply and demand. So what we saw is that the builders are feeling very confident about the future. However, the new home construction is not keeping up with the demand. So the limited new supplies relative to household growth, and that should continue to support those home prices. So we're going to see home prices continue to go up, as we say every single week. There's not enough houses. They're really not able to catch up to what demand is coming in 2025. So that's why we continue to encourage you, make this last quarter of 2024 count. Buy a house, make that move, go ahead and leave. If you're in San Diego, let's say, you got to call Michelle Warner. She's the queen bee of real estate, truly the best. I mean, that woman is amazing. She sends the coolest packages. Anyway, I won't ruin it for you. If you're a client with her, you will not regret it. She will sell your home for a exceptional price, I'm confident. And then somebody like Cameron Maralt in Nashville, Tennessee, grew up with a dad showing her exactly what it meant to invest in real estate and build massive wealth. So you've got somebody who, from a young age, believed it, saw it, could teach it to you now, and she's right there in Nashville. So that's just two of the people that are in our network with Leaving California. To give you somebody, you can go Google, you can look them up, you can look at their social media. You can see that these people are the real deal. The other thing we saw in this past week, which really pertains to that fourth quarter, is the retail sales. The holidays are coming. Before long, we're going to have Mariah Carey singing and peppermint mochas and all the things. And so what we already are getting is these retail sales expectations. And so the sales figures for September show that consumer spending remains resilient and strong spending is expected to continue this holiday season. The National Retail Federation, that's the world's largest retail trade association, they've projected that holiday sales are expected to increase between 2.5% and 3.5% compared to last year. So the American public is about to spend more money than they even spent last year. So this means you got to get into a home because we know that Christmas is going to tax people. It's going to be way easier to get into a home now and then choose what your Christmas budget is instead of choosing that Christmas budget and then that preventing you from building incredible wealth in 2025. The last thing I wanted to share, just from a statistics standpoint, is unemployment. We know that's one thing we look at every single week: unemployment, inflation. So the unemployment data that we got last week, the initial jobless claims fell $19,000 last week. 19,000, not dollars, 19,000. And that had 241,000 people filing for unemployment benefits for the first time. The continuing claims, those rose by 9,000, and that's putting us at 1,867,000 people that are still receiving benefits after filing that initial claim. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that initial jobless claims have been volatile in the recent weeks. The hurricanes have caused a spike in the filings to the highest level since July. And though it's important to note that we've seen this uptick in claims among the non-hurricane impacted states as well, that's pointing to weakness in the labor sector. So continuing claims are rising, as we said, and they're now at the highest levels they've been since July. And those are near the highs from November of 2021. That data continues to suggest that employers are slowing down on their hiring. People are collecting benefits for a longer period of time. This is not good for the American public. It is sad. This is something that we need to care about. Our hearts need to break for other people, and we need to make change. It's not going to get better. There's holes in the boat. The boat's taking on water. You got to reach out and get help from somebody.
Monty, that is such great information. And I know it's hard to say in a short snippet. So, and by the way, if you've been with us for this long on this show, we really appreciate it. That shows that you're really serious. I did have one other thing, Monty, and I know this is not a short answer. I wish it was, but I wanted you to address a lot of people that are waiting on the sidelines and people that are saying that the housing market's going to blow up, it's going to implode, there's going to be a crash, and they know it. How did they get there? How do you think that they get there? And can you clarify that statement? Because there's a lot of people that just, they say it. They know that the housing market's going to crash and everything's just going to implode and house prices are going to be down 30, 40%. So how do they get there? And maybe you could clarify that real quick.
I would venture to say that they're feeding off the media, which is a negative, biased media. They're selling fear because that's what sells. It's really sad. I would also say they just don't know because the statistics say otherwise. Feelings are important, but they can't be trusted. So if you feel like the market is going to implode, that's one thing versus you see the data to suggest that it's going to implode. For the last 81 years, we have the data on how home values rose. And for 73 of those 81 years, home prices went up, values went up. And so you say, oh yeah, but that leaves 8 years when they dropped. Yes, it does. Like 08, 09, yes, they did drop. But when you take the period of time right before that and right after that, and you average that out, it's still an increase. So they're not going to go down. There's nothing that suggests it. I just shared about the new home construction. Supply and demand dictates where those home prices go. And so we know that the builders can't even keep up with the demand. We know that the Fed has said they're going to cut rates by 100 to 125 basis points next year. It's going to be pandemonium. The market isn't crashing. If you sit on the sidelines and make those kind of statements, you're going to be the only one that loses because the wise people are going to listen to us. They're going to jump in. There's something called the bigger pile principle. You should listen to the person who has the bigger pile. So if that's money, if that's marriage, if that's wisdom, whatever it is, lean into the person that has the data, that knows and has done it. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to share with you the real data so you can make a decision based on that.
And Terry Gilliam, our founder and the creator of these channels, I believe by the end of this year, we're going to be over 300,000 members. Terry talks to people and he advises and counsels people on how to leave California. What are your thoughts on that topic, Terry? Go ahead.
I'm just very thankful that we have a professional like Monty Feltz here who can advise us on what's going on in the market, not sugarcoat anything. And with that in mind, I just want to bring up that I was listening to someone on the radio that I respect last week. That person said, hey, the Fed has dropped rates. Now time to refinance. No better time to refinance than when the Fed drops interest rates. And that goes completely against what's really happened and what Monty told us when the Fed did drop rates. Fed rates do not affect mortgage rates every time. In fact, mortgage rates have done nothing but go up a lot since then. So you want to connect with someone like Monty who will tell you the real world. Don't look at the Fed. You got to look at what's going on in the mortgage market and in the finance market. You can't just say, oh, the Fed dropped rates 50 basis points. Now we're at 2% again on mortgage rates. It doesn't work that way. You've got to connect with someone like Monty, create a plan, understand what's going on in the market. He will tell you what's going on in the market, and he will advise you on the best time to lock in a rate, or if it's the right time to refinance, he can help you with all of that. But the most important thing is to have a plan.
Well, that's great advice, Terry. And again, for those of you that are listening and you made it this far, again, that shows me that you're very serious. Please reach out to Terry, myself, or Monty. We can give you more information. And if you know somebody that's thinking about leaving California, they have to get connected to our network. I mean, it's really vital. And these are big decisions, and you need to have big professionals like us to help you make those decisions. In closing, Monty, anything else you want to add?
No, it'll be interesting what this week brings, and we're here to support people whether they're leaving California or leaving in another state. We really want to help make those decisions based on data and information.
And I'm David Barry. I'm your host of Leaving California. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.